Aisha had always dreamed of independence. When she finally landed a new job in the city, she found a small but affordable apartment in an old building tucked away on the quieter side of town. The building had a peculiar charm: narrow stairways, peeling paint, and heavy wooden doors that creaked whenever they opened. Most of the residents seemed withdrawn. They kept to themselves, barely acknowledging her with a nod. Still, the idea of living alone thrilled her. On her first evening, as she unpacked boxes, she noticed the hallway outside her door was unusually dim. The single bulb flickered on and off, casting long shadows across the corridor. It unsettled her, but she brushed it off as the quirks of an old building. Later that night, as she settled into bed, she heard it – soft, muffled sobbing. At first, she thought it was a television playing in another unit. But the sound carried with a rawness, a grief that made her skin prickle. It came from the apartment right next to hers. The cries were faint, yet constant, like someone mourning behind closed doors. She pressed her ear to the wall and listened until sleep pulled her under, whispering to herself that city life was just noisy. Over the next week, the crying became routine. It always started past midnight, around 12:30 a.m., and went on for hours. Aisha grew restless, often lying awake with her heart pounding as the sobs seeped through the wall. One evening, she decided to politely check on her neighbor. She knocked gently, her knuckles echoing in the silent corridor, but no one answered. When she asked the landlord about the tenant next door, the old man hesitated before saying, "That unit's been vacant for years." Aisha laughed nervously, assuming he was joking, but his stern expression told her otherwise. The words rattled inside her head for the rest of the night. If it was empty, then who was crying? Determined to prove it was just a misunderstanding, she visited the door again the next night when the sobbing started. This time she pressed her ear directly to the cold wood. The cries were louder, hoarse, aching like a woman wailing into an endless void. She whispered, "Hello? Are you okay?" And instantly, the sobs stopped. The silence was worse than the crying. Aisha's breath hitched and she stumbled back into her apartment, bolting her own door. For the first time, she truly felt alone and watched. Sleep abandoned her. Dark circles bloomed under her eyes as the nightly sobbing grew unbearable. Sometimes she thought she heard whispers between the cries, like words she couldn't quite catch. Once she swore she heard her own name. Desperate, she confided in a coworker, who half-jokingly suggested she record the sounds. That night, with trembling hands, Aisha set her phone by the wall and hit record. The next morning she listened back. At first it was just faint crying, but slowly chilling details emerged. Sharp gasps, choking sounds, and then a whisper that froze her blood. "Help me." The voice was distorted, as though it was right beside the microphone, yet she had been asleep when it was captured. Horrified, she deleted the file, convinced her mind was playing tricks, but the apartment seemed to rebel against her denial. Shadows shifted in corners. Faucets dripped red-tinged water. Her mirrors fogged up with no heat around, and once scrawled words appeared in the mist, "Don't ignore me." Terrified, Aisha begged the landlord to let her switch units, but he refused, muttering something about leases and rules. Each night became a battle to keep her sanity, as the cries now escalated into shrieks and guttural moans that rattled her walls. Driven to the edge, Aisha began digging into the building's past. In the local library, she found old newspaper clippings about a tragedy decades ago. A young woman named Leela who had lived in her neighboring unit. Leela had been found dead inside her apartment, drowned in her bathtub under suspicious circumstances. Neighbors had reported hearing crying and screams in the nights leading up to her death, but nothing was done. The case went cold, and the apartment had remained empty ever since. Aisha's chest tightened as she read, the pieces fitting together with dreadful clarity. That night, armed with a flashlight and a shaky resolve, she tried the doorknob to the vacant unit. To her shock, it creaked open, though the landlord had sworn it was locked. The air inside was heavy, sour with mildew, and the faint smell of iron. The apartment was stripped bare, but the bathtub in the bathroom remained. Its porcelain was cracked, stained with something dark. As Aisha stepped closer, the temperature plunges. The faucet dripped steadily, echoing in the silence, and from the drain came a sound, choking, gasping, sobbing. Her light flickered, and in that moment, she saw it. A pale figure curled inside the tub, hair covering its face, trembling with sorrow. She stumbled back, and the figure's head snapped up, revealing hollow eyes and a gaping mouth that unleashed an ear-splitting wail. Aisha fled, slamming the door behind her, but the cries followed her back into her apartment. They were louder now, echoing inside her head. Her reflection began to betray her. Sometimes when she looked into the mirror, her face was wet as though she had been sobbing herself. She barely ate, barely worked, consumed by the entity's torment. One stormy night, the crying began earlier than usual, seeping through the walls before dusk. Her lights flickered out, plunging her into darkness. From the corner of her room, water began pooling, spreading across the floor. She backed away, whispering prayers, when a woman's voice hissed directly in her ear, "It's your turn." Aisha screamed and ran for the door, but it slammed shut on its own. The temperature dropped so low her breath clouded the air. She could hear footsteps dragging behind her, closer and closer, until icy fingers brushed her shoulder. Whirling around, she saw Leela's ghost in full, skin gray and swollen, hair dripping, eyes bleeding black tears. The entity lunged and Aisha collapsed to the floor, shaking uncontrollably as the room drowned in the endless sobbing. The next morning, her co-workers reported her missing. Police arrived to find her apartment door locked from the inside. When they broke it open, the rooms were empty. No sign of struggle, no belongings disturbed. Only the walls were damp, streaked with what looked like saltwater stains. In the bathroom mirror, faint words lingered in the condensation. "She's with me now." The landlord refused to discuss it, quickly boarding up both Aisha's unit and the one beside it. Residents whispered of seeing a pale figure in the hallways at night, crying softly, sometimes carrying the faint echo of Aisha's voice. To this day, anyone who moves into that building claims to hear the midnight sobbing, as if the sorrow has multiplied. The legend grows. 2 women now weep in that forgotten place, bound by grief, their cries forever seeping through the walls. And for those unlucky enough to listen too closely, the sobbing always stops because the ghosts have found a new companion to mourn with them in eternal darkness.